Edward Mitchell stood beside his mother's grave wearing a worn-out suit and holding a heart that felt completely broken. The cold earth swallowed the coffin slowly as he watched the only woman who had ever truly believed in him get lowered into the ground. She was gone. And with her, Edward believed everything else in his life was gone too. What Edward didn't know, what no one bothered to tell him, was that while he mourned his mother, his wife Sylvia was already packing her bags. She planned to divorce him and marry his best friend, Tyler Brooks, just 3 days after the funeral.
I'm divorcing my good-for-nothing husband and I can't wait to finally be with you.
Edward was a struggling bookstore owner. For 10 long years, he had put his dreams on hold to care for his sick mother. He fed her, bathed her, read to her, and stayed by her side through every painful night. During that same decade, his marriage quietly fell apart. Still, Edward believed love meant staying, even when things were hard. That belief shattered when Sylvia handed him divorce papers. Cold, final, and already signed. What hurt even more was the name at the bottom of the page. Tyler Brooks. His best friend. The man listed as Sylvia's lawyer. Edward had truly believed he'd lost everything. He had no idea that his mother, the woman everyone thought lived a simple life, had secretly built a $300 million empire, and left every single dollar to the son she raised alone. 2 weeks after the funeral, Sylvia married Tyler in a small courthouse ceremony. She proudly flashed her new ring around town while Edward sat alone in their old apartment, grieving both his mother and his marriage. None of them knew about the inheritance letter waiting quietly in a lawyer's office downtown. What happens when a man who has lost everything suddenly learns he is worth $300 million? What happens when the wife who abandoned him at his lowest realizes what she walked away from? And how does a betrayal so deep turn into a revenge so carefully planned that it leaves everyone speechless? Edward Mitchell's hands trembled as he held a cheap cup of coffee in the bright, fluorescent waiting room of Patterson and Associates law firm. The letter had arrived the day before. Formal, serious, and urgent. It asked him to come in immediately regarding the estate of Margaret Rose Mitchell. He had almost thrown it away. His mother had died 3 weeks earlier with nothing but hospital bills and memories. Edward had paid for her burial by maxing out his last credit card. The divorce papers were still in his messenger bag, finalized just yesterday. Sylvia, his wife of 8 years, now his ex-wife, had waited exactly 72 hours after the funeral to tell him she was leaving. Not just leaving, but marrying Tyler Brooks. The same Tyler who had sat beside Edward at the funeral, squeezing his shoulder and whispering fake words of comfort. Edward remembered that moment clearly now. Tyler's hand on his shoulder. Heavy. Fake. Sylvia standing on Tyler's other side, her eyes completely dry. Her hand bare. She had already removed her wedding ring, at his mother's funeral. Mr. Mitchell. A woman in her 50s stood nearby, calm and professional. "I'm Dorothy Patterson. Please come with me." Her office smelled like leather and old books. The scent reminded Edward painfully of his own small bookstore, the one Sylvia had mocked during their last argument, calling it your little hobby. Dorothy sat behind a massive desk and opened a thick file. "I understand this is a difficult time," she said gently. "Your mother was a remarkable woman. She was also one of my most careful clients for over 30 years. Edward frowned. "Client? My mom was a nurse. She could barely afford." "She was a brilliant investor," Dorothy said softly. "An entrepreneur. She built everything in secret, and protected you from that world on purpose." The room seemed to tilt. Edward gripped the arm of the chair. Dorothy slid a document toward him. "Your mother's estate is valued at $37 million. You are the sole beneficiary." Edward stared at the paper, confused. "Everything," Dorothy continued. "Investment portfolios. Commercial properties. Technology patents. Venture capital holdings. All of it is yours. Effective immediately." The numbers didn't make sense. He stared at his mother's signature. At the date, 6 months before she died, when she could barely hold a pen. This can't be real," Edward whispered. Dorothy opened another folder. "Your mother began investing in the early 1980s with just $500. She had an incredible eye for opportunity. She bought property before it became valuable. Invested in technology before it became popular. She lived modestly and reinvested everything." Edward's voice cracked. "Why didn't she tell me?" "She wanted you to build your own life," Dorothy replied. "She wanted to know who you were without money influencing your choices." She handed him an envelope. Edward recognized the handwriting instantly. His hands shook as he opened it. "My dearest Edward, if you're reading this, I'm gone. And you're probably confused. I kept this secret because I needed to know you'd become the man I raised you to be without money shaping your path. You chose compassion over profit when you opened that bookstore. You chose love when you married Sylvia. You chose sacrifice when you cared for me instead of chasing success. Now choose wisdom. Money reveals character. It doesn't create it. People will show you who they really are now. Some will love you for what you have. Some will regret how they treated you when you had nothing. Don't let bitterness change your good heart. Build something meaningful. Help people who struggle like we did. You were never poor. You always had enough love. I'm so proud of you. Love, Mom." Edward read the letter 3 times, tears falling freely. Dorothy waited quietly. Finally, he looked up. "What happens now?" "We begin the transfer," she said. "But first, has anyone else been told about this inheritance?" "No," Edward said. "Just you." Dorothy nodded. "Your mother asked for discretion. She worried about people who might suddenly take interest in you." Edward thought of Sylvia, of Tyler, of the engagement ring Sylvia wore to the lawyer's office. "I understand," he said. "I want to keep this private." "Your mother expected that," Dorothy replied. 3 hours later, Edward walked out with new accounts, advisors, and a life he never imagined. He walked through the city in a daze, past the bookstore he was about to lose, past the apartment he no longer lived in, past Tyler's shiny real estate office. His phone buzzed. "Sylvia, can we talk? I feel like we ended badly. Tyler and I still want to be friends." 3 weeks ago, that message would have destroyed him. Now, with his mother's letter echoing in his mind and $300 million waiting in silence, Edward felt something new. Not anger. Clarity. He remembered Sylvia pulling away as Tyler grew richer. The comparisons. The lunches she called networking. Tyler offering help while quietly pointing out Edward's failures. They had planned this. While Edward sat by his mother's hospital bed, they were building a future without him. And somehow, his mother had known. That was why she warned him about people revealing who they truly are. Edward walked to a small park and sat quietly on a bench, watching the sun sink slowly into the evening sky. The air was calm, almost peaceful. For the first time in weeks, he had space to think. He could do anything now. He could buy Tyler's entire real estate company and fire him in front of everyone. He could build a massive bookstore empire and crush every big chain in the city. He could hire the most expensive lawyers money could buy and make Sylvia regret every single choice she had made. But his mother's voice echoed clearly in his mind. "Don't let bitterness poison the good heart you've always had." Edward sat there for a long time thinking, watching the sky turn orange, then purple. And slowly, a decision formed in his heart. One that would shock everyone who thought they knew him. Edward wasn't going to tell anyone about the money. Not yet. He wanted to see people for who they really were when they believed he had nothing. He wanted to watch carefully, to listen, to learn. And when the time was right, when Sylvia and Tyler fully revealed who they had become, he would show them what real character looked like. Not revenge. Something better. Justice. For the next week, Edward lived in a small, modest hotel room. Anyone watching would think his life was falling apart. In reality, he was quietly meeting with Dorothy and her team. They talked about trusts, long-term investments, and what Dorothy called strategic positioning. His mother had been wise about more than money. She had left notes about patience, about timing, about letting people expose their true nature without interference. The bookstore closing was real. Edward truly couldn't make rent. And even though he now had more money than he could imagine, he chose not to save it. Not yet. He worked his final days there, packing books into boxes and touching memories that felt heavier than the shelves themselves. Customers who had known him for years stopped by. They offered kind words about his mother and awkward sympathy about his divorce. Mrs. Chen, who bought romance novels every Tuesday, hugged him tightly. "That wife of yours never deserved you," she whispered. "And that Tyler Brooks, I never trusted that man. Too smooth. Too many teeth in that smile." Edward smiled softly. Her words meant more to him than she could ever know. On Thursday, Sylvia texted again. "Tyler and I are having a dinner party Saturday. We'd love for you to come. No awkwardness, I promise. We want to show we can all be adults about this." Edward stared at the message in disbelief. The audacity was almost impressive. They wanted him at their dinner party, a celebration of their relationship, built on his grief. They wanted him there so they could feel better about themselves, so they could tell their friends, "Look how mature we are." Edward is fine with it. After a moment, he replied, "Sure. What time?" Saturday arrived with cool autumn rain. Edward wore the same worn suit he had worn to his mother's funeral and took an Uber to Tyler's penthouse. The building was exactly what Tyler loved. Glass, chrome, and expensive design. The lobby screamed wealth. Edward remembered coming here once years ago, feeling small and impressed. Now he saw it clearly. This wasn't confidence. It was armor. The elevator opened onto Tyler's floor. Jazz music floated through the open door, smooth and classy, the kind Tyler claimed to love but never actually listened to. Edward stepped inside. "Edward." Tyler appeared instantly, smiling wide and full of energy. He wore a cashmere sweater that probably cost more than Edward's old monthly rent. "So glad you came," Tyler said. "Takes a big person to do this." They shook hands. Tyler's grip was just a little too firm, trying to prove something. "Wouldn't miss it," Edward replied calmly. Sylvia came out of the kitchen. She looked stunning. She wore a dress Edward had never seen before. She was slimmer. Her hair was styled differently. She looked polished. Expensive. She looked like the woman she had always wanted to be. "Edward," she said, kissing his cheek. The gesture felt both familiar and wrong. His stomach tightened. "Thank you for coming. I know this is strange, but I really believe we can all move forward positively." "Absolutely," Edward said evenly. "You both look happy." And they did. That was what struck him the most. Sylvia glowed with satisfaction. Tyler radiated victory. They believed they had won. They had each other. They had money. They had this life. And Edward, poor, grieving, divorced Edward, was here to quietly accept defeat and make their betrayal feel justified. If you are enjoying this story, please hit the like button and share with our friends, and also subscribe to our channel for more interesting emotional stories like this one. More guests arrived as the evening went on. Real estate developers, investment bankers, people who measured success in numbers, buildings, and portfolios. Tyler moved through the room like a proud king. "This is Edward," he announced loudly, placing a hand on Edward's shoulder. "My oldest friend." It was the same heavy hand from the funeral. The same fake closeness. Sylvia played the perfect hostess. She laughed easily, poured drinks, and touched Tyler's arm often. Small gestures that clearly said, "This is mine now." Edward watched everything like someone observing a stage play. Calm. Detached. He sipped the cheap wine he'd been given. Tyler had expensive bottles on display, but he served his guests middle-shelf drinks. Appearances mattered more than honesty. The conversations floated around Edward. Market trends, property values, vacation homes. No one asked about his mother. No one asked about the bookstore. He wasn't a person to them. He was furniture. A prop in Tyler and Sylvia's story of mature post-divorce friendship. Then Marcus Freeman arrived. Tyler's biggest investor. A billionaire tech mogul. Edward had met him once years ago, at another one of Tyler's parties. Tyler. Marcus boomed, stepping inside. Hell of a place you've got here. Must be doing well with those Brooklyn developments. Tyler smiled, full of pride. Can't complain. We're expanding into Queens next year. Actually, I wanted to talk to you about a partnership opportunity. Always hustling. Marcus laughed. That's what I like about you, Brooks. You know how to spot opportunity. Then his eyes landed on Edward. Don't I know you? Marcus asked. Edward Mitchell. Yes, Edward said, standing and shaking his hand. We met a few years back. Mitchell. Marcus paused. His eyes sharpened. Wait. Margaret Mitchell was your mother. The room went silent. Tyler and Sylvia both turned sharply, confused. Yes, Edward said simply. Marcus's entire expression changed. I heard about her passing, he said quietly. I'm very sorry. Your mother was extraordinary. Edward felt his chest tighten. She invested in my first startup back in 1994, Marcus continued. Nobody else would touch it. She gave me $100,000 and told me to build something that mattered. It changed my life. Edward swallowed hard. She never mentioned that. She wouldn't, Marcus said with a small smile. Margaret didn't invest for praise. She invested in people. Marcus studied Edward closely now. Are you in business? He asked. Investments. I own a bookstore, Edward replied. Well, I did. It's closing. A bookstore. Marcus repeated, genuinely interested. Margaret once told me she loved bookstores because they invest in ideas, not just profit. What kind of bookstore? He asked. Small. Independent, Edward said. We focus on local authors, community events, reading programs for kids. Edward felt Tyler's stare burning into him but kept his focus on Marcus. That's beautiful, Marcus said. That's exactly the kind of thing Margaret believed in. He pulled out his phone. Give me your number. I'd like to talk more. I'm looking to invest in community-focused ventures. Places that build culture. Tyler quickly stepped in. Marcus, you don't need to, he said smoothly. Edward's going through a rough time. Divorce. Financial trouble. He's probably not in a position to. I'm asking Edward, Marcus said coolly. Something in his tone made Tyler step back. Edward gave Marcus his number. They talked for 20 minutes. About books, communities, and Margaret's belief in meaningful investment. Around them the party continued, but Edward felt the shift. Tyler kept glancing over, his smile tight. Sylvia hovered nearby, listening carefully, her expression unreadable. When Marcus finally left, he shook Edward's hand warmly. I'll call you this week, he said. Your mother believed in me when I had nothing. I'd like to honor that. After Marcus left, Tyler poured himself a strong drink. That was random, Tyler said. Marcus doesn't usually give people that much attention. He knew my mom, Edward replied calmly. Sylvia touched Edward's arm. I didn't know your mother knew people like Marcus Freeman, she said. She knew a lot of people, Edward replied. She was a nurse for 40 years. She met everyone. But the seed had been planted. Edward saw it in Sylvia's eyes. In the way Tyler suddenly reassessed him. Not money yet. Connections. Opportunities. things they had dismissed before. Edward left early, thanking them politely. As he walked out, he heard Tyler's voice drop as he spoke to Sylvia. Did you know his mother knew Marcus Freeman? That could have been useful before we... The door closed. On Monday morning, Marcus Freeman called. They met at a small coffee shop in Brooklyn, far from Tyler's world of glass and chrome. I looked into your bookstore, Marcus said, sliding a folder across the table. Good reviews. Strong community presence. Why is it closing? I can't make rent, Edward said. The building owner is selling to developers. Marcus nodded. Tyler Brooks's company. Yes. Marcus leaned back slowly. Your mother taught me that the best investments aren't about maximum profit. They're about maximum impact. He opened the folder. I see a community bookstore being crushed so someone can build luxury condos nobody needs. Margaret would have called that extractive capitalism. She hated that, Edward said quietly. What I'm suggesting, Marcus continued, is that we buy the building. We keep the bookstore. Add community spaces. Maybe a small cafe. We build something sustainable. Edward studied him carefully. Why would you do this? Because your mother invested in me when I needed it, Marcus replied. And she taught me that wealth comes with responsibility. He smiled slightly. And because Tyler Brooks represents everything I dislike about modern real estate. Edward nodded slowly. Yes, he said. But only if we do it right. Fair wages. Real community involvement. Not a vanity project. Marcus extended his hand. Your mother would be proud. The purchase happened fast. Marcus Freeman's lawyers moved quicker than Tyler's ever could. The building that housed Mitchell's books was sold to Freeman Capital before Tyler even knew what was happening. The deal protected existing tenants and required community-focused businesses. Tyler called Edward later that day, his voice tight. Did you know Marcus Freeman was buying that building? He mentioned an interest in community preservation, Edward replied. Community preservation? Tyler laughed bitterly. That was prime development property. We were going to. He stopped. Never mind. It's just surprising. Maybe he's changing his focus, Edward said, letting the silence stretch. After the call ended, Edward allowed himself a small smile. Not revenge. Just consequences. The bookstore reopened with new funding and careful renovations. Marcus insisted they do everything properly. Better shelves. Comfortable reading corners. A small stage for local authors, poets, and musicians. A warm space where people could stay, not rush in and out. Marcus invested $2 million in what he called community infrastructure. Word spread fast. Local newspapers ran stories. Billionaire Marcus Freeman saves beloved bookstore. A stand against greedy development. Reporters interviewed Edward. He spoke about his mother's love for books, her belief in community, and her quiet kindness. He never mentioned the inheritance. He never mentioned her investments or wealth. He spoke only about values. Sylvia saw the article. She texted him. Saw the news about the bookstore. That's amazing. Marcus Freeman is incredible. You must be so excited. Edward didn't reply. 2 days later, another message appeared. Can we have coffee? I feel like we left things badly between us. I'd love to catch up properly. He read it once. Then deleted it. Tyler called. Hey man. I'm sorry about how I acted over the building. That was petty, Tyler said quickly. What Marcus did is great. Really great. Listen, I'd love to take you out and celebrate properly. Also, I wanted to run something by you. If you've got Marcus Freeman's ear, maybe we could talk about partnership opportunities. Your bookstore could be a model. I'll think about it, Edward said calmly and ended the call. That afternoon, he met with Dorothy. They're circling, Edward said. Dorothy nodded. Your mother predicted this. She called it the sudden value recognition phase. People who ignored you or betrayed you suddenly see potential. Not because you changed, but because what they think you can offer has changed. What did she recommend? Edward asked. Dorothy pulled out another letter. This one was thicker. She wrote guidance for different situations, Dorothy said. This one is labeled, When the Vultures Notice. Edward opened it. His mother's handwriting was steady, even though she had written it during her illness. Edward, if people who hurt you suddenly want friendship again, remember, they are not seeing you. They are seeing opportunity. Don't be cruel, but don't be foolish. Test them. Give them space to show whether they feel real remorse or only self-interest. Their choices will tell you everything. But don't lose yourself in games. Don't become someone who uses wealth as a weapon. Use it as a mirror. Let it reflect people's true nature back to them. Then decide who deserves a place in your future. Some people don't change. Sylvia chose comfort over love. Tyler chose opportunity over friendship. Those were not accidents. They were revelations. Believe them. Edward folded the letter carefully. She really did know everything, he whispered. She was dying for 2 years, Dorothy said softly. She had time to think about what mattered. She used that time to protect you. What do I do now? Edward asked. You live your life, Dorothy replied. Build your bookstore. Serve your community. And when Sylvia and Tyler show you who they really are, because they will, you'll know how to respond. 3 months passed. The bookstore thrived. Edward hired staff, created reading programs, hosted events, and built a place where people felt welcome. He still lived in a modest hotel room. Still drove his old car. Still wore his worn suits. To the neighborhood, he was just Edward Mitchell, the man who saved the bookstore with Marcus Freeman's help. But in certain circles, word was spreading. Marcus introduced Edward to other investors and philanthropists. People who knew the legend of Margaret Mitchell. People who spoke quietly about her empire, and her son who had inherited her values, if not, as they assumed, her fortune. Tyler heard the rumors. He started calling every week. Finally, Edward agreed to one dinner. They met at an expensive restaurant. Tyler's choice. My treat, Tyler said confidently. As they ate, Tyler leaned forward. I've been thinking. You and Marcus have something special. Real community connection. I've got capital and development experience. What if we partnered? Real community-focused projects. Not the extractive stuff. Edward sipped his water. Why the sudden change? Tyler hesitated. I'm realizing there's more to success than profit. Sylvia's been saying that too. She always said you had the right values, even when we... He stopped, then continued. She feels terrible about how things ended. The timing was awful. Right after your mom's funeral. We weren't thinking clearly. Edward placed his glass down slowly. You were caught up in your own stuff, he said calmly. Yes, Tyler said quickly. Exactly. Tyler leaned closer. I know I messed up. But we've known each other since college. That matters. Now we can do something meaningful together. Something your mom would have been proud of. Edward's jaw tightened. Don't, he said quietly. Don't what? Don't use my mother to manipulate me, Edward replied. You didn't know her. You visited once in 2 years while she was dying. Once. For 20 minutes. You brought flowers she was allergic to and talked about your properties the entire time. Tyler's face hardened. That's not fair. I was busy. I didn't know. You didn't care, Edward said softly. You didn't care because she had nothing to offer you. Just like you stopped caring about me once Sylvia decided I couldn't offer her the life she wanted. Now wait a minute. I'm not angry, Edward said. I'm just clear. Tyler went silent. You're here because you think I'm connected to Marcus Freeman's money, Edward continued. You see opportunity. You always have. And I learned from my mother how to tell the difference between people who love what you have and people who love who you are. Tyler's expression darkened. So that's it. You're just cutting me off. I'm not forgetting anything, Edward said. That's the problem. I remember all of it. He stood and placed cash on the table. The bookstore is doing well. Thanks for asking. I'm helping other community businesses Marcus is investing in. I'm also starting a foundation in my mother's name to support small business owners facing predatory real estate practices. He paused. Really appreciate your concern. Edward walked out. Tyler didn't follow. Sylvia called the next day. Her voice was tight and controlled. Tyler said you basically accused him of using you, she said. That's not fair, Edward. He genuinely cares about you. Is that why you're calling? Edward asked calmly. To defend Tyler. There was silence on the line. No, she said finally. I'm calling because I think we need to talk. Really talk. Why? Because I owe you an apology. A real one. Not the surface things I said before. I need to explain some things. Against his better judgment, Edward agreed. She came to the bookstore that afternoon. She was dressed casually, but not accidentally. It felt carefully chosen, meant to remind him of easier days, of who they used to be. She walked slowly through the renovated bookstore, running her fingers along the shelves, studying the reading corners, the small performance space. It's beautiful, she said at last. You really did it. Marcus made it possible, Edward replied. She hesitated. I've heard rumors about your mother. That she was more than just a nurse. That she knew powerful people. Had investments. There it was. Edward kept his face calm. My mother was a nurse who lived modestly. She left me values and memories. That's enough. Sylvia turned to face him. I made a mistake, Edward. Leaving you when I did, the way I did, it was cruel. And I'm sorry. You're sorry, he repeated. I am, she said quickly. I got caught up in Tyler's world. In the idea of security and success. I forgot what really mattered. I forgot that you were always there. Always steady. Always kind. She stepped closer. And now I see what Tyler really is. He's obsessed with status, with deals, with impressing people. He doesn't actually care about community or meaning. He just wants to look like he does. And you think I'm different? Edward asked. I know you are, she said earnestly. You always were. I was just too shallow to see it. Her eyes were wide. Hopeful. I think we ended things too fast, she continued. If we had waited, if I hadn't been so impulsive, you think we should get back together? Edward asked. I think we should talk about it, she said softly. I miss you. I miss us. The real us before everything got complicated. Edward looked at her carefully. Really looked. She was beautiful. Polished. Everything she had always wanted to be. And she was empty. He could see it now, the hollowness beneath the shine. No, he said simply. She blinked. No. No, Edward repeated. You don't miss me, Sylvia. You miss the idea of me. Or maybe what you think I've become. But you never actually knew who I was. That's not true, she said sharply. You left me 3 days after I buried my mother, Edward said quietly. The only person who ever loved me without conditions. She looked away. You didn't even wait a week, he continued. You were already wearing Tyler's ring at the funeral. Her face flushed. I explained, we got caught up. You got caught up in seeing an opportunity and taking it, Edward said calmly. That was your choice. But don't come here now and pretend it was a mistake just because Tyler isn't what you hoped, or because you heard rumors that my mother had connections. This isn't about money, she said quickly. When did you start missing me? Edward asked. Before or after you saw Marcus Freeman's name next to mine in the paper? She opened her mouth, closed it, opened it again. You're being unfair, she said. I'm being honest, Edward replied. My mother taught me the difference. Her expression changed. The softness faded. Something harder appeared. Fine, she snapped. You want honesty? You were drowning, Edward. Your mother was dying. Your bookstore was failing. You had no future. I couldn't keep sinking with you. Tyler offered stability. A future. I took it. Edward nodded slowly. You're right. That's survival. She crossed her arms. But it's not love, he continued. It's not partnership. And it's not what I want in my life. And what do you want? She demanded. To pretend you're noble while using Marcus Freeman's money to play hero? You're doing the same thing Tyler does, just with better PR. Maybe, Edward said evenly. But I'm honest about what I'm building. And I'm building it for the right reasons. Sylvia grabbed her purse. At the door, she turned back. You'll regret this, she said. Tyler and I are moving forward. We're making things happen. You'll stay stuck in this little bookstore playing community hero while the real world moves on without you. That's fine, Edward replied calmly. I'd rather be stuck here with purpose than moving forward without one. She left. Edward stood alone among the shelves and books, surrounded by stories and quiet strength. And for the first time in years, he felt lighter than he ever had before. Dorothy called 2 days later. I think it's time, she said. Time for what? Edward asked. Your mother's final instruction. Edward went quiet. She asked you to wait 6 months after her death, Dorothy continued. After the shock. After the grief. After the opportunists revealed themselves. She left something for you at the office. Edward met her that afternoon. Dorothy didn't say much. She simply handed him a tablet. She recorded this 1 week before she died, Dorothy said softly. She wanted you to watch it only after you'd experienced life with and without the people around you. Edward's fingers trembled as he pressed play. His mother's face filled the screen. She looked thin from illness, but her eyes were sharp, alive, loving. Hi, baby, she said. Edward's throat closed instantly. If you're watching this, she continued gently, it means 6 months have passed. It means you've had time to grieve, to adjust, and to see who stayed and who left. She smiled. That knowing smile. The one that always meant she understood more than she said. I hope I was right about what I predicted, she added. I usually am. She took a breath. You have $300 million now, Edward. That's terrifying. And wonderful. And complicated. Edward let out a shaky breath. Money at this level doesn't just change your life, she said. It tests everyone around you. I knew that. That's why I planned carefully. Her expression softened. By now, Sylvia has left you. I'm sorry, sweetheart. I knew she would. I saw it years ago. The way she measured love in comfort and security. She didn't love you. She loved the idea of you loving her. Edward's eyes filled with tears. There's a difference, his mother said gently. And Tyler revealed himself too, she continued. I never trusted him. He smiled too much at things that weren't funny. He always measured friendship by usefulness. She leaned closer to the camera. But listen to me carefully. They didn't betray you because you weren't enough. They betrayed you because they never were. That is not your failure. That is theirs. Edward closed his eyes. Now comes the important part, she said. You have a choice about the kind of wealthy man you become. She raised a finger slightly. You can be like Tyler, extractive, greedy, using money as power. You can be bitter, using wealth as revenge. Or you can be what I tried to be. Her voice steadied. Someone who understands that money is responsibility. I built my fortune in secret because I wanted you to build your character without it, she said. And you did. You chose kindness over profit. You chose care over convenience. You chose love, even when it cost you everything. She smiled through tired eyes. Now I'm asking you to choose purpose. Don't hide your wealth forever, she continued. Use it. Build things that matter. Help people the way I tried to help people. Create opportunities for those who deserve them. And this is important, she said firmly. Don't be ashamed of having money. Be intentional about using it well. She paused. There's an account Dorothy will show you after this video. It's separate from the main inheritance. I've been setting it aside for years. For people like you. People who were kind. People who struggled despite doing everything right. People who just needed one chance. Her eyes softened. I want you to be in charge of that fund now. $100 million. Dedicated to giving people opportunities one never had. Edward's breath caught. You'll know who deserves it, she said. Trust your instincts. Trust the values I raised you with. Her expression grew serious again. And Edward, don't let Sylvia or Tyler make you cruel. Don't let their small hearts make yours small too. Let them go with grace. Focus on building the world you want to live in, she said, not on punishing them for living in theirs. She smiled, tears in her own eyes now. I love you. I'm proud of you. Now go build something beautiful. The screen went dark. Edward sat frozen, tears streaming down his face. Dorothy quietly handed him tissues. She created the Margaret Mitchell Foundation 5 years ago, Dorothy said. You're the chairman now. $100 million in capital. The instruction is to grow it carefully while distributing grants every year. Edward shook his head slowly. She planned everything. She planned to protect you, Dorothy replied. And prepare you. She hesitated, then handed him another envelope. There's one more thing. Edward opened it. She wrote dozens of letters, Dorothy explained. To people she helped. People she invested in. People whose lives she changed. She wanted them delivered after her death. Why? Edward asked quietly. Because she wanted you to have a network, Dorothy said. People who understood what she built, and why. People who shared her values. Marcus Freeman was the first, Dorothy continued. But there are many others. CEOs, artists, teachers, activists, people she quietly supported. Edward looked inside the envelope. 50 names, addresses, stories. His mother's careful handwriting described each person, what they had overcome, what they had built, and why they mattered. She wanted me to know I wasn't alone, Edward whispered. She wanted you to know you're part of something bigger than yourself, Dorothy said. A legacy of purpose-driven wealth. Edward spent the next 3 months reaching out to the people on his mother's list. Every conversation changed him. A tech CEO who started in a dorm room with his mother's investment. A teacher who founded a school for underserved children with her grant. An artist whose gallery existed because she believed beauty mattered. A non-profit leader fighting hunger because Margaret understood what it meant to go without. They all knew his mother. They all loved her. And they all wanted to honor her by standing with her son. Marcus Freeman organized a gathering. Not a party. Not a celebration. It was a memorial and a planning session. 50 people came together in a community center in Brooklyn. It was the kind of place Margaret Mitchell would have loved. Simple. Warm. Full of purpose. They shared stories first. Memories of Margaret. Quiet moments. Life-changing help she never talked about. Then Marcus stood up. Margaret taught me something I never forgot, he said. She taught me that wealth without purpose is just hoarding. The point of having money isn't to have more, it's to do more. The room grew quiet. She lived that belief every single day, Marcus continued. Now we have Edward Mitchell, who learned those values firsthand. I propose we formalize what she started. We share resources. We coordinate investments. We amplify each other's impact. Heads nodded around the room. We build what Margaret started. Everyone agreed. That day, they formed the Margaret Mitchell Network, a coalition of values-driven investors, entrepreneurs, and leaders committed to purposeful wealth. Edward became the coordinator. He inherited not just his mother's money, but her mission. The news spread quickly. The Wall Street Journal ran a feature. The Secret Billionaire, Margaret Mitchell's Quiet Revolution in Responsible Wealth. The article detailed her strategy, her values, and how she built enormous wealth without exploiting anyone. Edward was interviewed. He spoke carefully. He honored his mother's privacy while explaining her philosophy. Tyler called. Edward let it go to voicemail. Sylvia sent a long email. Apologies. Explanations. Claims of growth. A request to reconnect. Edward deleted it without replying. 3 weeks later, he ran into them. It was at a charity gala. The Margaret Mitchell Network was donating $5 million to community development programs. Edward attended as a representative of the foundation. He looked different now. Not flashy. Just confident. Calm. Comfortable in himself. Sylvia saw him first. Her face went pale. Tyler turned slowly. Confusion crossed his face. Then recognition. Then something close to fear. Edward nodded politely. Sylvia. Tyler. Edward, Sylvia said, her voice thin. I didn't know you'd be here. I'm with the Margaret Mitchell Foundation, Edward said evenly. We're donors. Tyler swallowed. Your mother's foundation? My mother built it, Edward replied. I run it now. The pieces fell into place for them. The rumors. Marcus Freeman. The newspaper article. The money that had always been there, hidden. You inherited. Tyler started. I inherited my mother's values, Edward said. And her life's work. Yes. Sylvia touched her throat. Her diamond necklace caught the light. You let us think. I didn't let you think anything, Edward said calmly. You thought what you wanted. You saw what you wanted to see. He met their eyes. Neither of you ever asked about my mother's life. Her work. What mattered to her. You were too busy measuring success in ways she taught me didn't matter. That's not fair, Tyler said sharply. You hid it. I lived my life, Edward replied. And you showed me exactly who you were when you thought I had nothing. He paused. Thank you for that. It was clarifying. Marcus Freeman appeared beside him. Edward, Marcus said quietly. They're ready for the announcement. Coming, Edward replied. He turned back one last time. My mother taught me that character is what you do when nobody's watching, he said. You both showed me your character clearly. He nodded politely. I hope you build the life you wanted together. Truly. I just won't be part of it. He walked away. Behind him, Sylvia sucked in a sharp breath. Tyler muttered a curse. Edward didn't look back. On stage, Edward announced $5 million in grants for 12 community organizations. He spoke about his mother's vision. Her belief that wealth was responsibility. He introduced the Margaret Mitchell Network and its mission to change how wealth worked in society. The applause was loud. Long earned. Later, during the reception, a young woman approached him. She looked nervous. About 25. Wearing second-hand professional clothes. Mr. Mitchell, she said softly. I'm Sarah Chen. I run a literacy nonprofit in the Bronx. We help immigrant families. Edward smiled gently. Your mother donated to us for 5 years, Sarah continued. She never met me. Never asked for recognition. She just believed in what we were doing. Her voice trembled. When she died, I cried for a week. She changed my life. And the lives of thousands of children. Edward felt his chest tighten. Thank you for telling me, he said quietly. I wanted you to know, Sarah replied. What you're doing matters. She invested in hope when it was easier to invest in cynicism. That's rare. They talked for an hour. Edward listened, truly listened, just like his mother had taught him. When Sarah left, Dorothy joined him. Your mother would be so proud, Dorothy said. I hope so, Edward replied. I know so, she said. He looked around the room. People talking about impact, about meaning, about community. His mother's people. His people now. He thought briefly of Sylvia and Tyler, likely still calculating what they had lost. He felt no bitterness, only peace. Dorothy, Edward said, I want to expand the Foundation Scholarship Program. I want to support people caring for sick relatives, people who put family before careers. Dorothy smiled. Your mother already planned that. She called it the Caretaker Fund. $10 million. Edward laughed softly. Of course she did. He nodded. Then let's get started. Across the room, Sylvia and Tyler slipped out quietly. No one noticed. Edward saw them leave and felt nothing but calm. They had shown him who they were. He had shown them who he had become. And he had built something his mother would be proud of. From this story we have come to understand that character is revealed in hard times. People show who they truly are when life becomes difficult. Not when everything is comfortable. Money does not create character. It exposes it. Wealth only reveals what was already inside a person. Greed, kindness, selfishness, or purpose. Loyalty matters more than opportunity. Those who abandon you at your lowest should not benefit from you at your highest. Revenge is loud, but purpose is powerful. True success is not destroying others. It is building something meaningful. Choose purpose over bitterness. Bitterness poisons the heart, but purpose heals it and gives life direction. Love is sacrifice, not convenience. Real love stays, even when there is nothing to gain. A good legacy is built quietly, not loudly. The greatest impact often comes from unseen kindness and intentional generosity. What lessons did you take from this story? Write your thoughts in the comments section. We would love to hear from you. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this story, please like, share, and subscribe for more powerful and meaningful stories like this. See you on the next video.